Imagine walking alongside Jesus on an apparently ordinary day, ascending the Mount of Olives. A gentle breeze blows through the trees, and in the background, the city of Jerusalem unfolds in all its grandeur. At that moment, something profound is about to happen. The disciples, curious and perhaps even anxious, can't help but ask Jesus about what intrigues them the most. "Lord, when will the end be? What will be the signs of your coming and the end of the age?" Jesus, with eyes full of wisdom and compassion, begins to reveal truths that would echo through generations, making it clear that the future they so desired to know was shrouded in mystery, signs, and warnings. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be peaceful. There would be times of pain, deception, and tribulation, but also of hope, perseverance, and glory. Thus begins Matthew 24, one of the most powerful and prophetic passages in the entire Bible. In it, Jesus gives us a glimpse of what is to come, a map of the last days of human history filled with warnings but also with promises. And it is about these 20 impactful verses that we will now delve. Let's explore together each word of Jesus, immersing ourselves in the revelations he shared with his disciples and through them with us. Prepare yourself, for this is not just a prophecy, it is a call. And so, in the silence that followed the disciples' question, Jesus begins to speak. They are attentive, and his words slice through the air with an intensity that only eternity can bring. He does not start with a grand sign or a celestial vision. Instead, he looks at the disciples and says, "Watch out that no one deceives you." His first words are a warning, a clear alert that deception will be one of the first signs of the end. False teachers would arise, pretending to be Christ, and many would be led astray by these lies. The disciples exchanged glances among themselves. They expected an answer about when the end would come, but Jesus shows them that the beginning of the difficult times would be marked by confusion and deception. What he reveals is not a date but a condition of the human heart, the ease with which humanity can be led away from the path of truth. And then he continues, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars." The tension in the group rises. Wars? Rumors of war? But Jesus, serene, adds, "Don't be alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come." What the disciples did not fully understand yet, but would soon learn, is that Jesus was outlining the panorama of a world in turmoil. And amid this chaos, the greatest challenge would not only be surviving external tribulations but maintaining faith, resisting deception, and not allowing fear to dominate their hearts. Jesus' words at this moment carry a weight that goes far beyond the immediate circumstances. He is speaking not only to those few men around him but to all of us, through the ages, warning that the end times would bring deception and chaos. Yet he also gives us assurance, the end has not yet come. But Jesus does not stop there. He moves forward, bringing even more revelations, and the disciples listen with increasing attention. He describes a scenario that goes beyond wars and rumors, something deeper. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. The entire world, it seems, will be in conflict. And it will not only be between nations but among peoples, ideologies, and even within the hearts of men. Jesus speaks of famine, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. What he describes is a world on the brink of collapse, where natural forces and human systems are in turmoil. These are undeniable signs, like the pains of childbirth, announcing something imminent. Jesus' words resonate like distant thunder, heralding a storm the world cannot avoid. But as before, he says, all these things are only the beginning of birth pains. These calamities, though terrifying, are just the start. They are harbingers of something much greater, an even more intense tribulation to come. The disciples must have looked at each other, trying to process the weight of these words. If these are only the initial pains, what else might be in store? Jesus prepares them for what is to come. He does not promise a life without challenges or an easy path. Instead, he describes a world where the natural order disintegrates, where humanity faces crises in all forms. And amidst it all, he reminds us that these events are not the end in themselves but signs pointing to something deeper, a cosmic change, a preparation for what is yet to come. The message is clear. Times will be difficult, signs will be everywhere, but this should not cause us to lose focus. This is only the beginning. Then Jesus delves even deeper into his message. He looks into the disciples' eyes and says with unwavering seriousness, "Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me." The silence that follows must have been overwhelming. It was not just about the world he was speaking of but about them, his followers. They would be persecuted, hated by all nations because of the name of Jesus. Disciples who had followed Jesus in search of hope and salvation, were now facing the harsh truth. The path they chose would not be easy. There would be times when they would be hunted, humiliated, even killed. And not for any mundane reason but precisely for their faith, for their loyalty to Christ. It was a difficult destiny to accept, but Jesus spoke with authority, as someone who knew exactly what was to come. And more, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. It would not only be external persecution they would face but also betrayal among fellow believers. In times of fear and pressure, those who once walked together, full of faith, would be tempted to turn against one another out of fear or desperation. Jesus does not soften the truth. He reveals that love, which he always preached as the foundation of everything, would begin to grow cold. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. The evil in the world would become so intense, so pervasive, that even hearts once burning with faith and compassion would begin to harden. But amidst this bleak scenario, Jesus also leaves a promise. Anyone who stands firm to the end will be saved. This is the light that shines in the darkness. Perseverance, even amid tribulation, hatred, and betrayal, will be rewarded. Jesus calls his disciples, and all of us, to resist, to keep the faith alive, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. The path will be difficult, but salvation awaits those who do not give up. And then, amidst his words about tribulation and perseverance, Jesus reveals a grand and hopeful mystery. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Amid all the chaos, wars, betrayals, and persecutions, Jesus highlights something extraordinary. Despite everything, the gospel, the message of salvation, would be proclaimed throughout the entire planet. Every nation, every people, every language would hear about the kingdom of God. This would be a decisive sign. The end would not come until the good news had reached every corner of the earth. Imagine the impact of these words on the disciples. As they tried to absorb the reality of imminent persecution and a world in turmoil, Jesus now spoke of an unprecedented expansion of the gospel. The same gospel they had begun to share with some in Jerusalem would be taken to all peoples, breaking down barriers of culture and distance. Jesus was giving them a vision of the future, a monumental task. No matter how much the world was collapsing around them, the mission to bring God's truth to the entire world would be fulfilled. And only when this task was complete, when all nations had witnessed the truth of the gospel, would the end come. This announcement is a spark of hope amid the darkness. Even if the love of many grows cold, even if evil and persecution dominate, the gospel would continue to advance. And those who persevered in this mission, those who remained steadfast in Jesus' call, would be part of the greatest revelation of all time, the kingdom of God being proclaimed to the entire world. And when this proclamation was complete, then the end would approach. But it would not be the end of the world as we know it, full of pain and darkness. It would be the beginning of the final victory, the coming of the kingdom in all its glory. But Jesus' words do not stop there. After announcing that the gospel would be preached to all nations, he changes the tone, now speaking of something frightening and imminent. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. The words abomination of desolation weigh heavily on the disciples. They knew Jesus was referring to something deeply prophetic, something that would bring a time of tribulation like never before. Jesus instructs his listeners not to hesitate when this sign appears. Therefore, anyone who hears about the abomination that is going to be set up in the holy place must not go there. It would not be a time for hesitation or questioning. Whoever is on their roof should not go down to get anything. Whoever is in the field should not turn back to get their cloak. This will be a time of urgency, a time when destruction will be so swift and brutal that every second will be precious. And, with compassion, he laments those who will face this tribulation even more difficultly. Pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days, pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on a Sabbath. Their suffering would be compounded by the cruelty of the times. The intensity of the tribulation would be something that even Jesus, the Son of God, deeply sympathizes with as he mentions it. Jesus asks them to pray that their escape would not occur in winter or on a Sabbath, which would add further difficulties. Winter would bring the harshness of the cold, and the Sabbath, for the Jews, would bring restrictions, further aggravating the situation. And then he makes the declaration that would resonate for centuries, for then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. The magnitude of this tribulation is unparalleled in human history. It will be a time of such severe pain that if those days were not shortened, no one would survive. But, in his mercy, God will shorten those days for the sake of the elect, those who remain faithful. The disciples must have certainly felt the weight of these words. Jesus was showing them the future, a future where the world would face its greatest trial. But even in this apocalyptic vision, there was a thread of hope. God, in His mercy, would protect the chosen, shortening the time of suffering so that they could endure and persevere to the end. But even amidst the great tribulation, Jesus continues with His warning, "If anyone tells you, 'There he is out in the wilderness,' do not go out, or 'Here he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe it." He knew that in moments of desperation, people become vulnerable, anxious for any sign of salvation, any hope they can cling to. And it is in this desperation that false Christs and false prophets will arise. These deceivers will not be ordinary charlatans. No, Jesus warns that they will perform great signs and wonders, even trying to deceive, if possible, the elect. Imagine the power of these signs, capable of confusing even those most steadfast in faith. These false prophets will appear at the darkest moment, presenting themselves as the solution, as the returned Christ, as the answer the world is waiting for. But Jesus makes it clear, "I have told you everything ahead of time." He has already warned us not to be surprised. Even with all the signs and wonders that may appear, He reminds us that His coming will be unmistakable, without the need for intermediaries or false messengers. So if anyone tells you, "There he is out in the desert," do not go out, or "Here he is in the inner rooms," do not believe it. The true coming of Christ will not be a secret event or hidden in some remote corner. Jesus emphasizes that His return will be like lightning that shines from the east and is visible even to the west. Something visible to all, undeniable, without doubt. This is one of Jesus' greatest warnings for the last days. The temptation to follow deception, to seek quick and easy answers in times of crisis. False Christs will emerge with seductive words, impressive signs, but Jesus reminds us that when He returns, everyone will know. There will be no mystery or secret. He will come in glory, and His arrival will be as obvious as the sky lighting up with the flash of lightning. At this point, Jesus' warning is clear: stay firm. Do not be deceived by the illusions the world will present in these final times. Even if the days are dark and the suffering great, the true coming of the Son of Man will be unmistakable and glorious. And then, Jesus reveals one of the most impressive and anticipated moments of His prophecy. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. His return will not be something hidden, silent, or reserved for a few. It will be a cosmic event, visible to all corners of the earth, a moment that no one can ignore. What Jesus describes next is a scene that transcends anything the disciples could have imagined. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. The very universe will seem to tremble before the majestic coming of the Son of Man. It will be as if all creation is holding its breath, preparing for the greatest revelation in history. And it is in this setting that He will appear. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Jesus does not specify exactly what this sign will be, but one thing is certain. It will be something glorious, unmistakable, a hallmark of the end times. All the nations of the earth will mourn when they see Him coming on the clouds of the sky, with power and great glory. This is the moment the entire universe awaits, the climax of all history. It will not be a discreet coming but a display of power that will shake the heavens and the earth. And when He comes, He will not come alone. He will send His angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather His elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. The angels, with the sound of a trumpet that will echo throughout the universe, will gather the chosen ones from all parts. Those who persevered, who kept their faith amid tribulation, will be gathered to meet the Lord. Imagine this scene, millions of voices being called, the faithful from all eras being gathered by the angels, while the sky shines with the glorious presence of Christ. Here Jesus offers us the final hope. No matter how terrible the tribulation, suffering, or chaos that precedes this moment, in the end, victory will belong to Him. The coming of Jesus will be the fulfillment of all promises, the redemption of the chosen, and the inauguration of a new era where His glory will reign sovereignly. This is the great conclusion Jesus reveals to us. The end times will be marked by chaos, yes, but also by the greatest of events, the coming of the King of Kings, to gather His own and establish His eternal kingdom. After revealing the magnitude of His coming, Jesus changes the tone, leading the disciples to a practical and profound lesson. Learn a lesson from the fig tree. He uses a simple and common image, a fig tree. When its branches become tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. With these words, Jesus explains that just as the changes in the fig tree indicate the approaching season, the signs he had described, the tribulations, the deceptions, the preaching of the gospel to the whole world, will be like budding leaves indicating that his coming is near. He is teaching the disciples to recognize the times, to understand that the signs around them are not mere coincidences but evidence of something much greater that is to come. And he continues, "So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, right at the door." Jesus wanted his disciples, and all of us, to know that when these signs begin to manifest, the time of his return is near, much closer than we can imagine. Like someone who watches the leaves sprouting on the fig tree and knows that summer is coming, we must be able to discern the time we are living in and recognize that the end is approaching. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Jesus' words echo with a sense of urgency, as if he is warning us not to be inattentive. He is giving us a code, a way to read the times so that we can be prepared and vigilant. Then, as a cornerstone of this lesson, Jesus states, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." He reminds us that although everything around us may change, although the very universe may be shaken, his words, his promises, are eternal and unfailing. He calls us to trust in them, to build our faith on this unshakable certainty. Jesus teaches us that the signs of the end times are not just frightening or confusing events. They are like the buds of a fig tree, a gracious warning to those who observe, a chance to prepare, to watch, and to be ready for the glorious moment of his return. And then, Jesus concludes his message, bringing everything to a crucial point. "But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." Here, he reminds us of something fundamental. Although we can recognize the signs and understand the proximity of the events, the exact moment of his coming remains a divine mystery, hidden even from the angels and from Christ himself while he was on earth. Those who expect a specific date or try to predict the exact moment of the end are, in reality, losing focus. Jesus teaches us that instead of being obsessed with when, we should always be prepared. And to reinforce this, he gives us a powerful image. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. In Noah's days, people lived their lives normally, eating, drinking, marrying, until the day Noah entered the ark and the flood came unexpectedly. They did not perceive the signs around them, were inattentive, and were caught by surprise. Jesus warns us not to be like those in Noah's days who ignored the warnings. The same will happen at the end times. While the world continues with its routines, the Son of Man will come suddenly like a thief in the night. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. Here is Jesus' great call, vigilance. He calls us to a life of constant preparation, not based on fear but on hope and expectation of his coming. We must live as those who know that the Lord can return at any moment, with hearts ready and eyes open. Jesus makes it clear that there will be no specific advance warning of the final moment. It will be as unexpected as lightning in the sky, as sudden as the rain that fell in Noah's time. But those who watch, who keep the faith, and remain prepared will not be caught by surprise. They will be ready to receive him with joy. So, the final message of Jesus in Matthew 24 is clear. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. This is the call that echoes through generations. The coming of the Son of Man is not something distant or abstract but an imminent reality for which we must prepare every day. And this is how he leaves us, with an invitation to vigilance, faith, and hope, awaiting the glorious return of the one who promised to come in power and glory. The prophecy has been delivered. Now it is up to us to be ready.